Hughes from the Out of Body Travel Foundation. Here we are live to take all your questions, and boy, do I have a snack of those today. So we're going to see what we can do. Just a quick reminder to please subscribe to our channel, which keeps us more searchable, like our videos, same reason. And if you can't subscribe to our channel through memberships, which allows us to keep our content free everywhere in the world. And so thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to dive right in because, by golly, we have a lot to cover. So this one is, I'll just take them all one at a time so I'm not overwhelmed here. Okay, this is from Peter. Peter says, Dear Marilyn, after reading your first book, Odysseys of Light, Adventures in Out-of-Body Travel, copyright 91, I opened myself up to the possibility of conscious contact with the other side. At that point, I confronted my reality and challenged to join you on the other side. I was 15 years old. I am now 47 plus. Getting there, I started spending 1 hour a day completely alone with myself. Every morning upon waking, I spent 5 to 10 minutes bringing back dreams consciously. Talked to my guides throughout the day, expressing my desire to astral project, and truly felt that with desire and with feeling. And after speaking to my guides at night, I would go to sleep meditating on love and oneness. I have a problem, child. This went on for 3 months. I was in high school at the time. I want to thank you for everything you've done, and I'm extending my gratitude to you as I feel it's important that you helped me out of the goodness of your heart. So I'm letting you know how much your book meant to me and how grateful I am to have read it. And now he's going to tell us about an experience he had. I was in what appeared to be a dream, sitting on my bed, watching a TV program, politicians. I suddenly became aware of how dark the room felt. I was in a dream. So I got up and made my way across the room to the light switch, and I extended my arm to switch it on. To my surprise, my arm sunk into the door frame. I spun around, took a close look at my hands, and held my awareness. It was made up of a blue-white electrical flame. Yes, the entire atmosphere around me like a jet engine. This is the point I realized I was dead or awake. The first words out of my mouth were, Jesus Christ. Then what followed, sheer terror. I pleaded, shrieking, please take me back, please take me back. I woke up in my physical bed. I did not move my body for approximately 10 minutes while recollecting. Further, I promised myself not to ever forget that it happened. My first question is, was this not a dream? And the second question is, what's the reason that nobody talks about this? Or why is nobody talking about these things? I responded to Peter by telling him, thank you for your kind words and you're very welcome. I'm amazed that you were introduced to my first books at age 15 and are now 47 plus. That's amazing. We've been walking this path almost our whole lives together. As to your questions, it certainly sounds like you had an out-of-body experience. And the fact that to this very day you sleep with the light on would indicate that this was something greater than a dream. As to why people aren't talking about it, there are always a certain group of people out there who are interested and talking about this. Throughout time you'll see it, but as you have obviously also observed, most don't. My guess is that most people are very grounded in the physical world, and it is only after a soul awakens and really begins seeking the truth and seeking God, seeking to know those secrets of our existence, that such things begin to be awakened within them. Even the very thought of these things just don't matter to them. They don't care. Sometimes it just takes a brush with death of their own or the loss of someone they love to trigger it. Sometimes it's never triggered. So I have to ask about that experience and what do you think caused you so much terror? There's nothing on the surface of it in the description you had which would explain it. I can totally understand just having an unexplainable guttural reaction of fear when you had the experience and going back. What I'm intrigued by is the lingering fear that you continue to have years later, which will lead you to leave the light on. Based on what actually happened, I'm surprised by this, but maybe you have more insight into it. You did refer to the state as dead or awake. Is it possible that some type of fear of dying is what is behind all of this? So, then we had a deeper back and forth with questions. And before I go into all that with him, let's say hello to everybody. Hi, Adriana. Adriana says, hello, Marilyn. Thank you for your live. You're welcome. John Lisacatos. Hi, Marilyn. MT. Hi, everyone. How come sounds very echo. Is it only me? I don't know. So if anyone else is having an echoing problem, let me know. Adriana says, and I loved my real live with you. Yes, I got to meet Adriana just a couple of weeks ago. She was in my area, and we met in person, and that was awesome. Gita Peraz, hello from Copenhagen, Denmark. Hi, that's awesome. Adriana says the sound is very echo. Interesting. Yes, a bit off from Gita. MT Bink, help Marilyn to find her audio or fix her audio. Adriana, hello MT and happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. So, I don't know what could be causing that. So, why don't we continue forward? Let me know if it's a big enough problem that I should just stop and restart, because I could do that. So continuing forward with Peter, he says, hi, Marilyn. So after I had that experience, I now recall from that point onwards, I felt everything that I believed or the way I viewed the world had permanently been turned upside down inside of me. And I responded by saying, this is to be expected. It's not necessarily upside down, but expanded. And you can no longer view it from the limited perspective you previously had. And anything or anyone who tries to force you back into that box will be met with resistance. Peter says, what I meant by people talking about it, I meant the politicians as in the dream. I was sitting on my bed watching a television program of politicians in Australia. I was in high school at the time. I grew up in a single-parent home. My response was, yes, this makes sense. These things were invisible to our physical world, and once you have an experience like this, it is unfathomable to our senses that everyone is in the dark about it. But especially in his experience, he may have been dealing with different levels of consciousness of these other people, the politicians as he refers to them, in his experience, and they might not have been aware that they were actually having a mystical or out-of-body experience. I guess as I got older and learned about the world, I understood why politicians do not talk about it. I note in our household growing up, we never owned a television. I had your book. And my response is, I'm very honored and glad you had my book. It was also like this for me. And as time went on, it just became more difficult because it almost became an us or them kind of thing for many years. It's not so much this way now, as things have changed quite a bit, but back then, there was often outright hostility. That it was absolutely impossible to unsee what we knew. He goes on to say, I have joined esoteric groups as such, so I believe that I know what you were talking about with a certain group of people. And same as I believe you read books on these topics. Some of them give remarkably detailed explanations on similar stuff, I want to make it clear that I'm not here to convince anyone of my experience because I know what happened was true. I liken the jet engine sound in the out-of-body state as an aboriginal didgeridoo playing on a megaphone. I felt as a result of that experience, I got a download of, quote, universal understanding, what you might call vibrational raising. I liken it to a blessing but also a curse because sometimes ignorance is bliss. Once I crossed over and peered behind the curtain, so to speak, I cannot pretend it is not there. That other universe vibrates at such a high frequency, it is completely out of our range of perception. Amazing, a whole universe, and yet it is there overlapping our physical dimension. I believe you understand, right? So some of my responses to these are, small groups would get together and talk about these things, but they were on the outskirts, the fringe. Okay, bagels. And I'm also totally on board with you on that. I've held to that from my day one for myself because it is quite pointless to have the argument about whether the experiences are real or not. Once you've had a true out-of-body experience, you know beyond all shadow of doubt that it was true and real. And you also know you cannot prove it to another person, but it absolutely has been proven to you. And in relation to the jet engine sounds he describes, I see what you mean, and it was easier to pretend it wasn't there because you didn't have to deal with all the ramifications of being different, standing out, and the consequences of knowing what you know in relation to the decisions you would have had to make in your life, right? It's very similar to the didgeridoo in terms of the sound. I have one of those, by the way. So continue our dialogue. And I think there is an amazing predilection of us connected in this way, because that's truly unbelievable that you found that where you live in the UK, it's even hard to find pieces of that here in Arizona. Let me just make sure that's not out of order, because it probably is. Yes, it is out of order. I'm moving forward, and then I'll go back. Okay, and so exactly how I would describe it, well done, and it is very amazing. It feels wonderful to hear another person who's seen and knows these things and to describe it so perfectly. Because even in today's world, we remain surrounded by those who question such experiences and who don't believe in God or an afterlife or mysticism or out-of-body travel, and it's an integral part of who we are as human beings. To hear your experience is a blessing. And so he continues on. Peter does here. He says, I have heard similar stories to my own, which astonished me as I grew older. I then noticed it was coming through intuitively everywhere around me on the physical plane, like from behind the scenes. As this progresses, you do have what I call flashing through. And other gifts will sometimes manifest themselves as well. They don't always become really developed gifts, but you'll have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Sometimes you have a flash of clairvoyance, psychic intuition. In my case, I had a lot of empathic qualities, but I would also have insights into other souls who would walk into my path. At certain times, I would be given the sight to see ghosts in the physical world, presences, energies, etc. But those were not all the time. It would happen as it happened. Those gifts would not be always there. They would flash through as needed. Sometimes other types of prophetic gifts, etc. So when people have these experiences, it sometimes opens a doorway to other types of phenomena occurring to them as well. Peter says, when I was there on the other side, what I noticed looking backwards is how dense the physical plane is. When I was 19 years old, I went and spoke to a wise woman who said to me that experience was not meant for just me to benefit or as a gift, but was meant for me to pass on. I never quite understood what she meant by that because I never wrote books or taught about it. So I hope passing on my experience to you is what she meant. So So, regardless to the denseness of the physical plane, it almost fades to gray, is what I'm saying. I'm responding to him now. It's so dense it becomes almost colorless in our eyes, and the world of the spirit becomes this vibrant, beautiful, living organism that emanates colors and lights we've never seen here. Particles beyond are further apart and become easier, more fluid to move through. The physical plane is dense, harder to move through. Particles are very closely bound, tight, and grounded. And so relating to what he said about the sharing, I'm sure you've shared it with others throughout your life. Thanks, Pink. Let's see where the mouse ended up. I think it's over here somewhere. All right, there we are. We'll just put that right here for now. Okay. All right, hopefully this is still working. I think it might be. We're going to hope for that. Okay. And even in the experiences you've had, you are sharing. So when you're having these out-of-body experiences, you are in the process of sharing while you're having those experiences, because there's an energetic exchange between us and the other spirits, but also the realm. So it's much bigger than what we might view as passing it on. We pass on by being that which we are. And I think that is what she may have been referring to in your case, whether she realized it at that moment or not. Peter continues, also, I believe you are a great teacher because not too long ago in years I experienced a series of unusual coincidences which can only be deemed very otherworldly or vibrational raisings. My response is, thank you again for your kind words, and I'm so excited and happy that you experienced these vibrational raisings. They are very important in our spiritual development and thus a very good sign of movement forward in your path. So, amongst other things, this is Peter, I noticed a framed metallic meteorite in a pawn shop. On the back, it indicated that it was from the Barringer crater in America, with some numbers like a code. Imagine this stone traveling through space for potentially thousands of years, then impacting Earth about 50 million years ago. The particle bounces across the globe through history, changing hands and hands. In the shop 3 blocks where I live, what are the chances of that happening? Which was bought at an auction by the shop owner, then purchased by me. This thing looks really old. It dawned on me lately that you are from that part of the world, which is why I am looking forward to reading all of your books. What do you think? Hang on here. I think that's an amazing predilection of us connecting this way here. That's truly unbelievable that you found that where you live in the UK, and it's even hard to find pieces of that here in Arizona. Couldn't get that easily here. Wow. So God moves mysteriously now, doesn't he? Just another very interesting sign of perhaps how God wanted to emphasize this very cool intersection between our paths that started so many decades ago. I'm honored to have been a part of your life without having even known. So thank you for sharing that with me. I'm very moved by that too. When I was out of the body, it felt like, imagine being submerged underwater, right? Well, consider that is our earthly consciousness. And that is very much how it feels, Peter. You're very good at describing the qualities of the experience. Then imagine being taken out of the water and moving around on dry land. How more freely we can move from point A to point B. That is how I contrast the two universes. Would you agree? Yeah, I would. It almost feels like your feet are filled with lead when you return, doesn't it? Although really there is nothing in this physical world, Peter says, that can articulate, describe this parallel universe, if you know what I mean. It appears we are completely cut off from it. Well, my response to that is we want to clarify that. It appears we are cut off from it. But as you now know, we are constantly overlapping it. And it's been shown to me how all souls are constantly interacting with it subconsciously, oftentimes in their sleep, but also in other ways psychically unbeknownst to them. The world of the spirit is continually moving and swaying with humanity and guiding us, but there appears to be an inherent purpose in most of humanity being cut off from their remembrance of the other side. But when a soul begins to awaken, that purpose changes and the door opens, a light comes on, and this is what happened to you. It happened to me 40 years ago, and it's happened to many others. And as you read my books, you will find that there is much, much more beyond that initial awakening point in our development as souls. Peter goes on, as far as the lights in my room, yeah, I like to sleep with the lights on, dim if possible. I've tried to sleep with them off, but gravitate to lights on, please. The reason is just in case my spirit decides to go walkabout, it can find its way back easily. Ha ha ha. So I see what you're doing here, Peter, but the astral plane is lit as if by twilight, and it's unnecessary. You'll also find if you want to travel more extensively, you'll probably need to stop doing this because it will hinder that progress. Peter says, after I had that experience at the age of 15 during my school holidays, I noticed that the vibrations were happening a lot from then on. At night, like now that my spirit body knew about it, it wanted to fly every night. This was a concern. So my question to Peter is, well, why is it a concern? Was it only a concern then, or is it a concern now as well? And I'll explain my question. The vibrations are necessary for the continuing expansion of your soul, your travel, your soul's attainment of action and knowledge. Knowledge is not information, it's vibration. And these raisings are integral to the continuing evolution. So if it is a current concern, I would suggest that you let that go and allow it to happen. Peter says, I must align my intention in this direction at some point. I wonder what it would be like projecting now. If I do want to project, I think I would have to sleep with the lights off. I often wonder if I could have moved further out in the out-of-body state. What is out there, would it be different now than before? I think it could be very interesting to find out, Peter. You are at a different stage of life and you've accumulated a lifetime of knowledge, and now is a good time to integrate it. And I do think that with the lights off would work better. Let's see where we're at here. It sounds like you could have and might be able to yet still read, you might be able to yet still. And I'm suggesting you consider reading The Mysteries of the Redemption and Galactica. There are more to continue into after those, like the Mystical Captive series and the Solitary series. But start there. Mysteries of the Redemption, a treatise on out-of-body travel and mysticism. Peter asks, am I allowed to explore this other universe without fear? Is it possible? Is this something that could be done regularly, or is once enough? Well, that's a good question, isn't it? A lot of people ask me that. Once is literally just a glimpse. Compare this like to a neurosurgeon. Would you prefer a neurosurgeon who took one class on a single day, or a neurosurgeon who took a 20-year preparation in full? Spirituality is just as vast. There is so much more to discover in the mystical spheres. You are likely allowed to, unless there are impediments. And those impediments I've discussed before, having to do with people who've had exorcisms or difficulties with spiritual warfare on the dark side. He said, the fear that I experienced when I was young made the experience memorable. I would like to get past that and move further out. And I understand that. This is something I would pray about and ask your guardian angel to help you to experience without fear. to have protection on your next projection, to be surrounded by him or her, your guardian angel, and other angels to make you feel safer. Peter continues, so not only are we an interplanetary species, but we live in a multi-dimensional universe, right? This dawned on me slowly. And absolutely, we are both and infinitely more. That's my answer. If Peter says it was not for you, I would not understand my own religion. And that is a big deal. This is my way of saying thank you. And I am honored, and you are welcome. Then let's continue. I believe your spiritual counsel and direction is in your books and online tutorials. You seem to cover everything about the out-of-body travel state. And I'm not talking about dreams here. Well, Peter, absolutely. And a lot of people don't understand this. Sometimes they are slowly approaching the out-of-body travel state from dreams, and so we speak to them from that which they can understand so that they may reach it. But you are absolutely right. They are absolutely different experiences. And if you've had an out-of-body experience, you know you've had it beyond all shadow of doubt. It's not dreamlike. It's not iffy. It's so powerful that you cannot deny it. Thanks so much, Peter. Thanks for the great discussion. And let's see if I think that's the end of our discussion with Peter. So that one went some fun ways now, didn't it? Now let's see what Beagles left me here with this. Put this back up. All right. There we go. All right, let's move on to the next. Okay. This one is another question. Hello, dear Marilyn. I have a small question for your live. On page 61 of your book, Extraterrestrials, the Mystic Knowledge Series, you describe an experience in these words, quote, I flew until I reached the star station of a distant planetary system. Okay, Adriana is saying sometimes the streaming gets cut off, so that's a bummer. All right, we'll do this question, and then we will cut this one and go into a new one. How's that sound? Okay. I flew until I reached the star station of a distant planetary system, the Didactan system, and knowing very little about where I was or what sector of space I might be occupying, unquote. This reminded me of an experience that I had myself. I was jolted back into my body in the middle of the night. It was a very strong jolt, and I remember it clearly. Then I was overwhelmed with this sensation that whatever I was, it was very, very, very far away. I remember that I even spoke out loud to myself. Wherever I was far. Very far from here. It was not here, very far from Earth. And then I had this strong sensation like when we traveled overseas to another country, very far away. We spent a month or so there, and we finally came home to our familiar house. The sensation was strong that I had gone far, and wherever I was not near to here on the planet Earth. Yet I could not remember anything else, but the sensation was undeniably strong. This happened before I even knew what astral travel and OBEs were. I had no idea at the time. You ended your experience saying that this planet in the Didactan system was settled in life and light, and it could help our own world here, but it was inexplicable. You could recall no more. My question is, have you recalled an experience sometime later that you could not recall at the time? I have, many times. In fact, had one just the other day. I ask because I wish that I could recall this one. The strong sensation stayed with me for years, but no memory of the experience. The sensation is still with me today, but again, no memory of the experience. Thanks for all you do. And if I may tell you that one of the things that you do and do so very well is to shed light on the many spiritual questions that we have. I know only God has all the answers, but I am grateful that God gave you this gift of the Spirit to the point that we can understand you, shed light on, and you cast light and knowledge on much confusing world here without answers. Thank you, Marilyn, and God bless you. You're welcome, and God bless you too. So yes, I have had that happen many times where I couldn't remember something and then it came to me a long time later. And I've also had situations where I'll have an experience and I will be going to a place and I will remember suddenly that I've been to that place many times before, but I had not remembered it at all before the current experience. And so an entire body of experiences can make themselves known to you as well in a new experience. And so, yes, that can happen. But in your experience, which was awesome, I would just focus on the sensation that it has apparently left an indelible print on your soul, because it seems like that was the purpose. If it comes back to you some point, great. But if not, don't focus on it anymore. Just allow that energetic shift that took place to continue within you. And you never know, right? So I'm going to go ahead and close this one out. I will open a new one in just a couple minutes here and see if we have a better situation with the live stream. Thank you so much for joining me. Please come back to the next one in just a couple minutes. Bye.